wanted to speak about mainly, and this is not meant as a lament or a complaint, but it's something that no one ever told me in all of graduate studies. No one told me about this, mainly even in the interviews, when I interviewed for a full-time position. Committee work and service work. You are trained as a graduate student to research, write, and perhaps a little bit of teaching. And when you take the job, one of the anxieties, of course, is about teaching, because you have to have that relationship with your students. That's the job as it appears on the scheduled part of your life, the teaching. The research is the stuff you spend every other waking minute doing, it seems. And depending on your relationship with the kinds of courses you may be asked to teach, they may or may not be directly related to your research. They may be at a tangent to your research. You may be learning entirely new fields to teach in these areas that you've been asked to teach. And so, some say teaching expands to fill the volume of the container. Fair enough. There's been some relationship, I think, with most people in graduate school as teaching assistants or otherwise to appreciate some of that. But the thing that took me by surprise as a new faculty member was committee work. Now, committee work operates at a university at a variety of levels. I had been in student government. I understood what that was. That was entirely voluntary. That wasn't really part of me being a student. But service and committee work is part of your job as a new faculty member. And of course, it operates at different scales. At the micro scale, you have the committee work of your department. And that, of course, is a departmental culture. Is it a hierarchical department? Is it egalitarian? Is there a kind of gerontocracy involved? Do people stick with titles? Are senior members doctor and junior members by their first name? It depends on the culture of the department. And as a consequence, sometimes committee work in some hierarchical departments is shunted to new faculty without any concern for that new faculty's transition to a new location, without the idea that you're on a probationary appointment perhaps, or looking for a probationary appointment 10 years somewhere down the road, and so you have a publishing agenda that you need to follow. You have this teaching demand that may be new, yet committee work is often shunted to new faculty members. I think with some of the best intentions, which is to say there's no better way to get to know the university, the department, and so on, except by this kind of committee work, which I think is fine. I'm speaking as someone who's been in the job for 10 or 11 years now. That first wave of arriving on the ground is gone. I do have some time for committee work now. I did committee work then, but I did not have the time for it. So there were all kinds of consequences. It intruded into my private life, my personal relationships and things like that. So that's, at a departmental level, that's one thing. And in my case, the entire department retired within 5 years of arriving. So I sat on 11 search committees in my first, 6 years, and chaired some of them. And, it was a very heavy load. Beyond the department, and this is usually reserved for faculty members who are at least in the tenure stream, service at the university level, perhaps the academic senate or the faculty association or union, whatever that may be. Again, this is good work. It benefits your workplace. You can have some influence in the outcome of some of these decisions in the workplace. But likewise, a really heavy workload in addition to the demands of the immediate academic year of teaching and then the summer that involves your research and scholarship. There are, of course, service works that you can do within your particular discipline as well, whether it's serving on editorial boards of journals, reviewing manuscripts, reading grant proposals, and so on. All of this, again, important work, and it's a question of figuring out what best fits your time and your interests. So that's my hobby horse. I guess I'll ride on today, because this was the biggest secret kept, I think, for me in any kind of graduate training.
Okay, great. I think my comments will reflect a heightened level of desperation as compared to my colleagues, that being someone who is not in this full-time stream yet, and who is, I've just finished one sessional appointment and we'll have another in the fall. And in terms of pursuing an academic career, I made two big mistakes very early on when I was in graduate school. The first big mistake that I made is I delayed my progress in my PhD by a few years. And look, I can write a great letter accounting for my delayed progress. I mean, I can write about my 2 wonderful, joyous children, and when somebody picks up my application and letter, they can look at that and say, oh, that's nice, and move on from it. It doesn't hold a lot of weight when you're applying for academic jobs. Or they could read on my CV that he ran varsity cross-country running. Great, well, this guy's kind of fit, but it doesn't do anything to get me a job. And so I've made this mistake of delaying my progress. But I guess while I was in the act of delaying this progress, I was actually quite aware of it and made sure that I took on other things as well. So I built a bit of a consultancy in my particular area, which is sports psychology, and have formed some partnerships around that. And I was also exposed to another research position, because once you have children and then are required to have a mortgage and a house and all of these things, I was working part-time research jobs. And so that actually allowed me to publish a little bit. And so my accounting for my delay has been a mixture of these sentimental items, but also I have produced a little bit in there as well, so I can draw on that. And I think the varied experience in there has helped me a little bit as I've tried to establish myself as an academic. The other mistake that I made is I fell in love with the place that I was going to graduate school. And I fell in love with a woman, and we got married, and she was a teacher, and so she's had a job in this same particular town for 10 years. And so the idea of just applying and going to the best job isn't all that attractive to us. And so to pick the place that you want to work is a bit tricky because there aren't always jobs in those places. And I'm currently in one of those positions where there is no full-time job, but I will do what I can to fill this sessional appointment. So what I want to talk to you about in terms of my advice is, if you're in this position where you have nothing concrete, you have nothing full-time, and you're trying to figure out where that job's coming from, I think there are 2 key parts that I've experienced with. The first part is getting in, and the second part is, what do you do when you're kind of in? So from the getting in perspective, I think getting exposure to a department, to a faculty, once you're finished, and continuing relationships is really important. And it might not be the most highly remunerated position, or at all, but I think having this continuation in your academics is really important. So some of the things that I did is, I found a way to become a stipend professor. Whenever there were jobs, I would look at, can I just teach this course? I reached out to faculty members whose research I was interested in to see if I could get on an application and contribute to their research. And I kept my research going a little bit. Other suggestions that I could make would be to attend talks and colloquiums, to be a part of the fabric, to continue to maintain that academic connection. So people are looking at you and thinking about you, and you're having a chance to show who you are and what you're doing. So I think those are really important bits. And let's face it, when you don't have a job, you have some flexibility in your schedule. It might not be all the flexibility that you want, and it might be not ideal from a financial perspective, but you do have some flexibility to do the things that might get noticed. But it's hard to know what those things are. So one of the things that I've done was I talked to the chair of the department to figure out, what does this department need? What is this department looking for? If I was to build my CV, how should I invest my time? What is most important? And that has really carried over into the sessional positions that I'm in. And so I guess I can talk now about, I'm kind of in, I've been renewed, whatever that means. And so I want to talk about what I've really keyed on in my advice when you're in these sessional types of appointments. One thing is to maximize your strengths. So I am a teacher, and so the research side of things is the thing that I had to do, but I was passionate about teaching and talking and presenting and being engaged with people. And so I've really tried to be the best instructor that I can be. I've been creative, I've gone to different mediums, I do things that are completely outside of the campus. I've really invested in that because I think that's a strength of mine. And I know that has brought me some level of attention within the department that I'm in. Whereas the advice of when you're full-time and you're secure is about, take some time and think and be conscientious of committee work and all of that. In my position, reflecting my desperation, I will do the things that nobody else really wants to do. I am willing to, okay, we have a committee on National Survey of Student Engagement. I'm young, I'm connected to students, I will champion that cause. I will engage with students, I will have them engage with me, we will do activities. No one else really wants to do that. They're working on grants, they have a program of research, they have graduate students that they're supervising and honor students. I don't have a lot of that in my temporary position, so I will do the things that other faculty members aren't all that interested in doing. I really invest in students. I find as much time as I can. I am open to them. I will answer any questions that they have. I will encourage them to come see me. And sometimes that load is a lot, I think, for full-time faculty members. But again, this is the position that I'm in. And one of the things that happens is that students talk. They talk about you. They talk about their professors. They talk about the people who they spend a lot of time with and pay money to be lectured by. So I really invest in my students, and I hope that pays some level of dividends. And this might sound very strategic. Oh, you invest in your students so they'll say something nice about you by the water fountain? That's not totally it. I derive a lot of personal satisfaction from it, and I enjoy seeing students be successful. But they do talk, and key people talk to students as well. I think being present is so important. So sure, we can breeze in and we think we have a couple of classes in our back pocket, and I'll show up and I'll deliver this and I'll be a great professor, and then I'll zoom out and do something else. I think being present and being around and being seen by people is really important, but also have a presence. So, it's the silliest cliche ever, but I seriously always have my door open unless I'm in a confidential conversation. Or unless I'm checking my Facebook. And so those are a couple times that I might close my door, but otherwise I am there and I am talking to students as they go by, I'm grabbing them, I'm chatting with faculty members. I want to really feel like I'm a presence in the department. People know who I am, they know what I'm up to, and I think that's really key advice in terms of being around. So the position that I was in, so this previous 9 months, there were 2 of us on 9-month sessional positions. And unfortunately, one of those positions ended, and so there was going to be 1 position for the 2 of us to compete for. And so it's ridiculous to think this way, but I was going through a 9-month job interview. I think every day that I showed up, when you don't have a job, you're kind of being interviewed if you're in a faculty, if you're in a department. And I didn't look at it that way throughout the year, but as the clock started to tick and I started to think, what am I going to do next year? Wow, this is what's happening. And so the other person in the department was a fabulous teacher as well. And she's actually going to be at St. Thomas next year. She's wonderful, and she's going to be so successful. I was ultimately chosen, but not based necessarily on my teaching or what I've done with students. It was based on my research record. And I'm not being paid to do a lot of research in my temporary position. I'm being paid to deliver content. But popping out a couple of papers related to my thesis work, I think was so key in getting me to come back. So even though I'm hired to teach, I'm being rewarded for research. So those are my experiences as somebody who's in the trenches trying to find something more full-time in a world where full-time opportunities are abundant.